Like, seriously.
Sorry
Whenever
about
Gus isn't
the...
being incredibly scummy
Sorry
towards
about
Tommy,
the
whom the show constantly
messed up
lets you
mic
know is,
from
and
the
I'm going to
last
say
part
this
of the
again,
video.
Tommy's best friend. He isn't the type of character that, while dumb, has a lovable personality. He's instead the type of character that is completely narcissistic to a point of
Narcissistic.
being infuriating. One half of his character has the exact same issue as Ollie Allen from Ollie's Pack, where he does horrible things and he knows what he's doing, except Gus doesn't even have an excuse to
Ollie
be this
Allen, you could at
horrible, while
least
the other half
argue.
is basically Patrick Star. No,
Patrick.
not the Patrick Star from the early and recent seasons of SpongeBob, where he has a dumb but lovable personality. I'm talking about the mid-seasons of SpongeBob, where he was not only a jerk, but was also dumber and completely arrogant.
You know, this brings me an important question. What level from hell is he spawned after?
Maybe it has something to do with his parents. However, that can't be true because despite the ways that they treat Gus, it's shown that Gus has a pretty decent life, considering the fact that they only really have him come back to the house during the evening to go to bed, and he has 2 friends that he hangs out with, and everyone around him lets him eat whatever he wants. He has all of these things in his life. Nothing that has anything to do with something traumatic, and unlike Tommy, he doesn't have a ton of bad things piled onto him. And yet, Gus still treats everyone as bad as possible, especially Tommy.
Man, Sean, the show just keeps finding ways to make Gus more and more unlikable. It almost makes me wonder if the people who are behind the show were deliberately creating such an unlikable character just to troll with the kids that actually watch the show.
And do you want to know what makes Gus even worse? Unlike Donnie, Kurt, and many of the villains that try to get a hold of Robot Boy, Gus is not supposed to be seen as a bully or villain. He is supposed to be seen as the comic relief. Someone that you're not supposed to detest, and is one of the characters that is supposed to be seen as one of the heroes, but in actuality, he acts like a villain. Yeah, Donnie does do worse things, and trust me, we'll be getting to him in a bit. Donnie is better than Gus because he isn't supposed to be seen as one of the protagonists. He is at least supposed to be seen as a threat for Tommy to win against. Even though, yes, Donnie is also terrible, especially because a certain character enables him to do these terrible things.
And Gus doesn't. He really doesn't. So there's no excuse. No fucking excuse.
While I was watching most of the episodes of this show, I would question, why does Gus exist in this show, and why does Tommy continue to be friends with him, until I got my answer in the form of an episode. In the episode Destroy All Robots, Tommy even questions why he and Gus continue to be friends.
That looks like a reference at all that from a title of the video game.
By adding conflict.
No. I call
Adding conflict? You know that title, Destroy All Robots, was referenced at video game title, Destroy All Humans.
As horrible as possible. You could have added bullies and given
Kolyoko.
like Gus
100% perfect.
some
Otherwise, he'd be a
That's not someone making a bad mistake. That's just
That's
being
Stu.
right in general.
The latter is the reason why Darkwing Duck and Mau Mau are both interesting and aren't unlikable. That's what
Darkwing
I'm
Duck
planning
and
to do
Mau
with
Mau?
some stories/projects of mine, and just like what I said towards Thundercat's Roar, just because you have your character question why they continue to be friends with the parasite of a friend, that doesn't make any of the issues go away. It's a, what I'm doing is wrong, I know it's wrong, but I'm
I know
gonna
it's
do
wrong,
it
but I'm
anyways.
gonna do it anyway.
But let's move on from Gus, and let's get into another group of characters that I cannot stand, and that is Tommy's family members. Getting this out of the way right now,
His family.
of these characters, the only one that I find tolerable is Debbie Turnbull, because she at least makes an attempt to be a good mother to Tommy and Donnie, is fair towards both of them, and actually has common sense. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Debbie was an influence on Nicole Watterson from the Amazing
Nicole
World of Gumball,
Watterson from
because of her
Gumball?
mix of being nice and furious. I can't stand the other two, though. Starting out
Some
with
Amount
Donnie
of Evil by Kevin
He's
MacLeod.
absolutely abusive, without a doubt. Unlike the father, I'll give this show some credit in that it does see that what Donnie does as a problem, as threatening music does play every single time he appears on screen, but that does not make what Donnie does okay at all. In one of the first episodes of the series, Cleaning Day, he literally admits out loud that he likes to bully his own brother by saying, "Nobody gives my brother swirlies but me," without self-awareness of how bad these implications are.
So in other words, He's a stereotypical big bully brother with little to no charm or personality. He makes Kevin from Ed, Edd and Eddy look three-dimensional.
Kevin from Ed, Edd and Eddy.
He constantly roughhouses with Tommy when Tommy is trying to get ready to go into the car. And the worst of them all is the Donnie-nator, where it's shown that at the beginning of the episode that while Tommy was taking a shower, Donnie invaded Tommy's personal space by going into his room, messing with his toys/property, and putting them in a shredder outside.
Seriously? Seriously? As if Gus wasn't enough to give Tommy such a terrible time in most of these episodes? The show seriously has a nasty habit of bringing such terrible people to Tommy.
Yep. And when his arm is broken, while he has a strong robot arm, he causes million-dollar damages to a bunch of cars, and he doesn't even get any sort of comeuppance for doing so. And yeah, that's actually something else that I should also bring up about Donnie that makes him even worse with everything that he does. He does horrible things, however, he doesn't even get punished for anything that he does. The most that happens in these episodes is that he is scolded at by Debbie, or is scared and intimidated by Robot Boy, and that is literally it. At every other point, a certain character is constantly enabling his awful behavior, and that certain character constantly plays the parental favoritism game. The episodes that I hate the most are Underwater and Party Out of Bounds, because this problem is completely on full display. Donnie, in one of these episodes, uses Robot Boy as bait without Tommy's consent, and the father literally breaks the two apart from fighting without hearing Tommy's side of the story. And in the other, Donnie destroys the entire house and makes a complete mess, but the father congratulates him in the end.
What kind of sick, twisted, mean-spirited world is this?
Apparently the kind that has the same morality as Chicken Little. This heavily implies that Donnie can make a mess of the entire house without getting into deep trouble, yet Tommy can't do the same thing without getting scolded at or grounded. Which leads me into talking about the worst character in Tommy's family, which is his father, Dwight. And I absolutely despise him. He's not the worst character in all of media. I already
charging
talked
battery,
about
it's
Gus is
slow.
the worst character out of all the shows that I reviewed in Sean's Network reviews so far. But Dwight is definitely one of the worst parental figures that I've ever seen. He would definitely be in the top 3 for sure, behind
The
Buck
top
from
3.
Chicken Little and Ivan's dad from Ivan the Incredible.
Ivan the Incredible.
I'm going to put it
The
in
movie?
4 words. He constantly plays the parental favoritism game. And this
Parental
shows he's
favoritism.
absolutely nothing wrong with it, to a point where, because of him, I think that Tommy should be taken away by Child Protective Services and be given a better life. In every episode, and I mean this with no exaggeration, he does not care a single bit about Tommy whatsoever, with the exception of the ending of Underwater and up until the ending of Racer Zero. I can't think of a single moment where Dwight cared about Tommy or had a positive interaction with him. Most of their interactions involve him scolding Tommy for, quote, not being manly, not doing simple requests that Tommy asked him to do, the dad putting him into dangerous situations, and constantly picking Donnie over him. And this guy is a massive hypocrite for the purpose of preferring Donnie over him.
Remember, kids, always honor and cherish your family, even if they show no concern at the sight of you hanging for dear life at a mountain cliff.
Honor and cherish your family. A moral in turning red.
This thing could go itself.
In the episode that Jem mentioned a little bit ago, I Want That Toy, he grounds Tommy for something that he didn't even do because it's his words against the guards. Yet in the other episode that I mentioned a bit ago, Party Out of Bounds, he doesn't ground Donnie for the entire house being a mess, even though he knows for every single moment that Donnie was responsible for the house being a mess, but he glosses over it because of his bias for Donnie. This parental favoritism garbage is even a problem in one of my favorite episodes of the show, Racer Zero. That episode might have been
Racer
my favorite
Zero.
episode, but that god-awful ending brought it down to a point of being pushed out of being my favorite. And the fact that he actually enables the fact that Donnie constantly beats Tommy up legitimately fires me up, to a point where I don't believe that this guy should have any more children if this is the way that he's going to treat one of them while putting the other on a pedestal. And considering the way that he treats children makes me fear of how he treated Tommy and Donnie as babies or even toddlers, because this stuff is downright triggering, especially if you've been through these things before.
Actually, now that you mention it, Sean, I'm kind of curious. Do you think that Dad force-fed Donnie all the milk and left Tommy with nothing but his mother to feed him?
That is a high possibility because of how much he doesn't care for Tommy. Another one of my least favorite episodes of the show is Footbrawl, not only for their really disgusting ending, and it literally has every single problem with the show, but also the dad is just awful in the episode because all he cares about is winning the game and nothing else, not even caring about the safety of the children playing the game.
The soccer mom side is really strong with this one for a guy who's supposedly a manly man.
He's a man.
You're a man.
Such a man.
A man, You're a man.
No.
A man.
One of T-Bone 2004's commentaries.
Oh. Okay then, moving on.
His worst appearance, though, is Mancation, because of one scene in particular that makes him downright irredeemable. In one sequence, he has Tommy and Donnie climb up a mountain, and Tommy ends up holding on for dear life. As he starts to lose his grip on the side
Some moments of screaming incoming. Turn down your volume while you still can.
Or being concerned for his son's safety, he scolds Tommy for, and I quote, acting like a baby and attracting a creature that doesn't even exist! And throughout the rest of that episode, he's more concerned with the fact that Tommy attracted a creature that doesn't even exist than the fact that he literally almost got Tommy killed. And he literally forgets Tommy in the end of the episode when running into the car and going home, which just cements how horrible he is in the episode.
Father of the century, ladies and gentlemen!
As for the side characters, I just don't care about them that much. Dr. Moshimo and Mew Mew are just there. They only really pop up on screen to tell Tommy about a new upgrade that Robot Boy has or what have you. Although, considering how insufferable most of these characters are, they are probably some of the better characters in this show because Dr. Moshimo doesn't have grating voice acting, and Mew Mew is a mostly silent character throughout the show.
The silent character.
I wouldn't have minded if we saw these two as the main characters instead, primarily because of how bad the voice acting is in this show.
You would think that Dr. Mishimo would be important since, I remind all of you, he's the one who built Robot Boy and made the dumb decision to have his oh-so-greatest creation at the hands of a, once again, mere child!
Mere child!
Yeah, she's just there.
I don't remember anything about any of the teachers, except for the gym teacher, because of how over the top she is. And the secretary from the episode Destroy All Robots, because the episode really triggers me, and that is the biggest example about how the show doesn't understand the concept of personal space. The other teachers, I don't remember anything about. And I'm not gonna lie, the villains in the show are really good, which is what I would have said.
The villains of the show?
Their voices are just grating.
I kind of disagree.
But their voices are grating.
Although I will say that even if the villains had potential, it's kind of hard to take them seriously when they either have voices with really thick accents or just terrible voices in general.
Which reminds me to say this, the voice acting in this show is just dreadful. Whenever the
dreadful voice acting
accents and trying way too hard to sound intimidating and funny, I get the impression that none of the voice actors sound like they even want to be there. Tommy sounds bland. Lola is completely mismatched, not sounding like a kid but instead an adult. Debbie sounds like the voice actor is just phoning it in, and Gus sounds eerily similar to Cartman from South Park. No joke, I needed to look up the voice actor for him to see if Cartman and Gus didn't have the same voice actor. Not only that, but Gus's voice just gets grating, being at its absolute worst in the episode that I mentioned a little bit ago, The Curse of Truckenstein.
The Curse of Truckenstein.
His voice was bad. And of course, it wasn't done by the same voice actors. You really think that the creators of South Park would seriously devote their times voicing such an awful character?
Some people also compared Gus to Cartman.
I think that the villains have this voice acting problem.
I mean, do they actually sound the same?
All the characters in this show. almost all of them have the problem where they try way too hard, or have very forced accents that just sound grating on the ears. The only ones that I find tolerable are Princess Justine, but she only
Princess
appears in one
Justine
episode, and I only
in
remember
Shelf
her
Life.
because that episode also triggers me, and Special Agent. But everyone
Secret
else
Agent.